Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's of this. Will she continue to do that when she is now one of them? Dana. And it is funny. She's so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who.
1. Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly didn't just criticize Sunny Hostin. They practically turned her into a national roast. It wasn't some light ribbing or polite disagreement. It was a tag team takedown that Sunny never saw coming. And the timing? Uncanny. Though they spoke from different platforms, both launched into brutal dissections of Sunny's latest blunder, as if the universe had scheduled a simultaneous reality check. The result was less a media skirmish and more a synchronized pummeling, with Sunny caught in the middle like a sitcom character walking straight into a revolving door.
Disgusting. She's Anna Navarro in your wildest imagination. You could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success that Tucker Carlson has. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere, and Tucker is about.
These aren't exactly wallflowers we're talking about. Gutfeld, known for wielding sarcasm like a flamethrower, and Kelly, a master of the clinical breakdown, didn't coordinate their critiques, but they didn't need to. Sunny handed them the material, and both pounced with the instinct of seasoned predators. Gutfeld attacked with his usual smirk-laced bite, while Kelly deconstructed Hostin's talking points with surgical precision. It was like watching a magician and a mathematician pull apart the same trick, one with flash, the other with facts, and both revealing how hollow it really was.
Brains are small, but who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead, let's check out this clip from Monday's episode of The View when the ladies put their science caps on and discuss the solar...
Now, nobody's calling this the Mensa Club, but when Sunny's in the mix, the bar somehow drops lower. She doesn't just fail to elevate the conversation, she makes everyone else look smarter by comparison. If The View had a magic mirror and asked it who lacked the most self-awareness, that glass might just shatter from the strain. And nowhere was that more obvious than in a recent clip where the ladies of the show decided to tackle science, yes, science, during a segment on the solar eclipse. Sunny aimed for brilliance and landed somewhere near bizarre.
Melania Trump came out and said she's about as pro-choice as they come. And here was the reaction on The View.
I think she hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
Look, this is a network that still runs out fact checks to these women, like it's concerned about them staying factual. She hates Trump. She doesn't want to be near him. She doesn't want to be president again. She destroyed the Rose Garden, and she hates Christmas. That is what passes for news. On a network, they did a presidential debate.
If you've ever tuned into The View, you know what to expect. Crosstalk, emotion, and chaos served on a hot plate. But this time, Sunny tried to steer the conversation with what she probably thought was intellectual gravitas. Unfortunately for her, it came across more like an actor ad-libbing Shakespeare with a fifth-grade science book. Greg and Megyn didn't even need to share the same set to respond. They saw the clip, and it practically begged for commentary. And they delivered, each one tearing into her comments with an energy that said, enough is enough.
Well, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly, it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
It wasn't just a bad moment for Sunny, it was an implosion. Her argument didn't unravel slowly. It collapsed instantly under the weight of its own confusion. Gutfeld seized the moment with glee, tossing barbs that pierced right through her logic like darts through paper. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly delivered her response with the kind of clarity that made Sunny's statements look like performance art. The contrast was stark. Gutfeld mocked, Kelly clarified, and Sunny floundered in between, the accidental centerpiece of a very public lesson in how not to debate.
Over on The View, accusing Israel of war crimes.
There is an international human rights body of law, and when you look at that law, part of it is retaliation against innocent civilians collectively.
Not committing war crimes. The ones committing war crimes are Hamas. The use of human shields is a war crime. They don't want Israel to bomb them, and therefore they've surrounded themselves with Israel's citizens, some 199 of them, and some untold number of Americans.
Let's not sugarcoat it. This wasn't a stumble. It was a professional faceplant. Sunny came in overconfident, tossing around big words like confetti, assuming sheer volume and Fogg's outrage could substitute for a coherent argument. But instead of winning over the audience, she unintentionally triggered one of Gutfeld's most effective takedowns yet. From his Fox News throne, he dismantled her points with the speed and elegance of a practiced debater. No shouting, no sweat. It was like she brought a water gun to a flamethrower fight. And Greg didn't even bother looking up from his notes.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color.
The ladies of The View. Speaking of Sunny Hostin, take a look at SOT 15.
I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now...
And just when you thought the situation couldn't get more lopsided, Megyn Kelly entered the scene like a composed prosecutor in a courtroom full of chaos. While Sunny's rebuttals stumbled into incoherence, Kelly delivered clean, calculated responses, each one puncturing Sunny's arguments like a needle through a balloon. It wasn't even a debate anymore, it was an autopsy. Sunny didn't stand a chance, and her absence from their respective shows only made her arguments easier to demolish. Gutfeld and Kelly, working independently, took apart every point until there was nothing left but a few scattered sound bites and a bruised ego.
I was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
1 day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended because you know who showed up.
Yeah.
And he was, whether he was asked or not. This
So he
is a
was
man
invited?
who didn't care what happened to the officers on January 6th.
She promotes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Sunny's attempts to recover were painful to watch. She didn't just miss the mark, she seemed to miss the entire conversation. Her answers became more desperate with each sentence, and the silence in the studio grew heavier with secondhand embarrassment. Meanwhile, Gutfeld kept his cool, dismantling her logic with all the urgency of someone folding laundry. Every time Sunny tried to climb out of the hole, she dug it deeper. It was the kind of televised disaster that made you want to shield your eyes, but you couldn't look away.
What I read, the true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
By now, Sunny's effort to sound intellectual had morphed into a slow-motion collapse, equal parts tragic and absurd. Watching her spin in circles on national television was like watching someone throw darts blindfolded in the dark. There was no aim, no target, just wild flailing and misplaced confidence. And as the audience looked on in stunned silence, Gutfeld and Kelly, both off-screen, methodically dismantled her every word. It wasn't reactionary, it was intentional, and it was effective. Sunny didn't just lose the argument, she became a cautionary tale.
Sunny Hostin asking about the differences between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And my prediction is this is going to be made into a campaign ad for Trump within the next hour.
What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different have had impact.
I guarantee you that's being made into an ad right now. It might hit before we close.
Megyn Kelly didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her takedown was delivered with the unshakable calm of someone who knew exactly where the pressure points were. While Sunny flailed, Kelly sliced through the noise like a surgeon. It was devastating to watch and oddly satisfying. Gutfeld, on the other hand, played the provocateur, punctuating his critique with humor and jabs that hit hard. Together, they presented a united front, even from miles apart. One sharp, one sardonic, both relentless. And Sunny. She was left grasping at straws, unaware the barn had already burned down.
Of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny, she's so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she...
Kelly's calm destruction of Sunny's claims wasn't flashy, it was forensic. Each point landed like a pin on a balloon, bursting Sunny's smug confidence with quiet efficiency. Sunny, meanwhile, doubled down on tired talking points, her tone increasingly desperate. The contrast couldn't be more glaring. Megyn's cold clarity versus Sunny's warm confusion. And while Greg and Megyn roasted her from a distance, Sunny, true to form, wasn't there to defend herself, nor did she seem aware of how thoroughly she'd been dismantled. It was a roast with no rebuttal, a one-way demolition with no resistance.
Here's Sunny Hostin asking about the differences between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And my prediction is this is going to be made into a campaign ad for Trump within the next hour.
What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different have had impact.
I guarantee you that's being made into an ad right now. It might hit before we close.
As Sunny scrambled to reclaim her credibility with vague analogies and bloated rhetoric, Megyn calmly exposed every hole in her reasoning like a bored professor skimming a bad essay. It wasn't personal, it was clinical. And Sunny, who started the segment puffed up with confidence, ended it looking dazed and confused. By the time she tried to deliver one last point, the moment had passed. The audience had already shifted from interest to discomfort. Gutfeld and Kelly didn't just critique her, they exposed a pattern. A pattern of performative outrage, flimsy logic, and misplaced arrogance. And this time, it wasn't just a stumble, it was a fall broadcast for all to see.